I'm Melissa Nielsen, and welcome to 2023.
Parenting and homeschooling can feel like a large feat to take on. Melissa Nielsen is here sharing her 26 years experience to help us. Melissa will inspire you with foundations for early childhood, Waldorf curriculum by the grade, middle school and high school resources, planning for peace, form drawing, beeswax modeling, wet-on-wet painting, inner work, temperaments, music, handwork, festivals, eurythmy, circle time, creating a co-op, homeschooling multiple children, conscious parenting, special needs, peaceful bedtime, and much more.
We're going to be doing our podcast in a two-piece format. So the first piece will be here on YouTube or on the podcast platform where you can listen to it for free. And the second piece, which is a deeper piece, a little more like going behind the scenes with Melissa a little bit. How do I actually apply these things in my life? And sometimes some juicier content. That is going to be available on our Patreon. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're joining us this week for our podcast. I want to introduce you to my good friend, Melanie, who is the director of our school over at Seasons of Seven. She's also on the founding ministry team with me over at Ariel's Light. And we are just really excited about this topic. So welcome, Melanie. I'm so glad you're here with me today.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'm so excited because I think you'll be here often now that we're on this space together. So today we're going to talk about a topic that, when you first mentioned it to me, I was like, that just puts a name on something I've been doing for the last 25 years. So we're going to talk about this concept of greenhousing. And you mentioned it's not a concept that you invented, but you were like, oh, wait, I can see how this can totally inform what I'm already doing. So talk about how you found it and just sort of what you say greenhousing is.
Sure. So I actually don't even remember when I found it or where I found it or how I stumbled upon it, because it's not something I've seen since. I saw it once, years and years and years and years and years ago. And like you, it really spoke to me as to oh, this is something I can use to explain to people what I've chosen to do that makes it sound beautiful.
Right. Well, it doesn't sound beautiful because then it creates a container without you having to explain so many other things, right? How weird we are with homeschooling, why we don't do video, or all of those other pieces. So go ahead.
So I remember I stumbled upon, it was just some small post on social media, and really the post wasn't even about that. It was just a word that was used in the post. And the word was greenhousing. And it was used in the way to explain how they were educating, or not even sure if it was about education or just raising their children, or like I said, it was years ago and it was just used once. Right. I've never seen it again, and it's a shame because I think we should use that term more. But basically it was in reference to that term that people say, oh, you're keeping your kids in a bubble, or you're living in a bubble. And that's such a demeaning, negative thing to say to somebody.
It's super negative. I think about, I don't know if you were ever a Seinfeld fan, like the Seinfeld Bubble Boy one, where he lived in this room that was all that's what comes to mind to me. And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. But all right, if that's what you think that's what I'm doing, this is a much more beautiful, positive space.
Right. When you think of, you're living in a bubble, or you're keeping your kids in a bubble, you get the image of you're isolating, you're making negative choices, you're living in fear. There's all this negative connotation to living in a bubble. But, when somebody tells you that, you can turn around and say, actually, no, I've chosen to greenhouse my children. I'm greenhousing my family. And what that is that, a bubble is keeping stuff out, and it's stifling and it's negative. But the greenhouse is a beautiful space where you can cultivate your family, cultivate your children, give them everything they need to grow and thrive and succeed before you expose them to the elements of our world.
Right. And I think what's so lovely is that image of the greenhouse. If you've ever, even though I'm horrible with plants, I know what a greenhouse is. you have this space that then has windows and doors, and you're opening them at different intervals to help the plants grow, to keep the plants warm, to like all of these pieces. And so that's why it's such a beautiful term for this way of sort of doing things, because it's not even just, because you said something, you said greenhouse my family. It's not even just your kids, because what's beautiful about it is you're even doing it for yourself. Like, these are the things that I choose to let in versus what I don't choose to participate in or have, a stake in or an argument in or anything like that. This is my space. And it is such a more beautiful space than, oh, it's a bubble. Because
and what we
bubble,
have to remember is it's what I choose to let in right now. It might not be right now. That might be something you choose to let in later. If you had some new little seeds that you wanted to sprout, you wouldn't just go outside and throw them on the ground and be like, hey, best of luck out there.
right?
What would you be able to reap in the summer? You would have nothing.
You would have nothing, because it's that
you
cultivating.
You bring them inside, you give them warmth and love, and you watch over them, and you see what they need. You every day you analyze, you look, oh, they need more water, they need more earth, they need a little sunshine. I'll move them over here. Right. Oh, that didn't work. I'll move them over here. So, when you're greenhousing your family and your children, you are watching every day and saying, what do we need today? What do we need right now? Let's give more of this attention to this right now, because that's what we need. And the whole point is so that one day you can open it fully and they will be ready to thrive, succeed, and just bloom and blossom and be the most beautiful plant that you can possibly have. And the goal is not to keep them in the greenhouse.
No, the goal is to plant them outside in the world, right? I mean, and it's so interesting. It's such a different way of looking at it, where people will say, oh, well, one day your bubble is going to get popped. You're keeping them in this bubble and your bubble is going to get popped. Where with greenhouse, you can say, actually, because it gives you like terminology when you're working with people that think you're crazy. You have this ability to then say, actually, no, the goal is that someday my bubble is never popped. Instead, I'm opening the greenhouse doors and we're planting them out in the world after they've been moved around the greenhouse as they need to be, the windows have been open, all of those pieces, right?
Because there's nothing to pop.
Right. That's what's so lovely about it.
There's nothing to pop. Mm-hmm. And you also have to remember, look, I live in Florida, you live in Florida. We have beautiful weather most of the year. Sometimes we get cold spells. I have an awesome Meyer lemon tree in a pot outside. It's doing well out there, but guess what? Every once in a while, I've got to bring that little Meyer lemon tree back inside, shelter it, and give it what it needs. And that's also something that you have to remember. Just because you've let the doors open and you've gone into this new space, sometimes it's okay to bring that back in.
Agreed.
And reevaluate and give that creature, plant, whatever you're bringing back inside your greenhouse, what it needs at that time. But then guess what? I bring it back out when it's ready again.
And it's all based on like where the child is ready, just like when that tree is ready. So if somebody was like wanting to utilize this in their road to conscious parenting, what terminology would you give them to say, for the in-laws, for the neighbors, for the people that are going to be those naysayers? They're already negative maybe about, oh, your child is not reading yet, or that sort of space. So they're already feeling like, oh, wait, I've got all of these things that I'm doing, and now I'm adding this other thing on top, and no, we're not watching TV anymore, and we're not doing this anymore. And so what terminology would you give that parent that's sort of new to this concept so that they can truly explain it? Like what would your elevator speech be for somebody like that?
That's a tough one, because ultimately I would love to say, well, you don't have to explain your choices to anybody, right?
I spend a lot of time telling people that you actually don't answer to anybody.
But we all know that that's not reality.
It's
And
like human nature to feel like we have to explain ourselves.
we feel this pressure to defend our choices, which we shouldn't. We should just stand up for what we've chosen. And like I like to do, just smile and
Right. We're
you
going to talk about that so much more in the second half.
But ultimately, we just feel this need. We're doing something so different. We all are, that are in this space. And what I do want to say something real quick is, yes, we are choosing to do something different. And we will get a different result, and that's okay. And that's what we want. We're going for a different result. And so I think that, the word greenhouse is definitely something that people will start to look at a little bit different than, I'm not watching TV but I think if you start saying things like, we've evaluated our values, and we really want to make sure that in our home, we are living by those values every day. And the best way to do that is to have some sort of greenhouse, some sort of covering over your family. And like you said, it's not just your children, it's yourself. If you're watching news 24 hours a day, that's not a healthy environment to be in. So I think that really it's your greenhouse. It's not your neighbor's greenhouse. My greenhouse is going to look different than your greenhouse.
Totally.
And I think the key thing is, if you're explaining yourself to someone, hopefully it's someone that you care about, because if it's not, you shouldn't be explaining yourself.
Right.
Agreed. If it's the person in the grocery store, you don't need to go into a speech about greenhousing.
And the person in the grocery store, I would just say, actually, that doesn't fall into my values, and then be done. Cut it off. Don't feel like you have to explain anything, or just say, no, but out, you're not part of my inner circle. Yeah.
And so I think that if you feel like you need to explain yourself to somebody, it's probably because it's somebody you care about. It's someone that you're choosing to have in your life in one way or another. So I think one of the best tools is for you yourself to take a quick step back and think about, what about this person do you enjoy? Do you value? What about this person do you want to bring into your greenhouse? And then lead with that. So, and you can find something pretty much, for everyone that you've chosen to allow in your life.
They shouldn't be in your life.
Right. And, I have some relatives that I probably wouldn't choose to have in my life if they were relatives, but they're relatives, and we love them, and they all have these beautiful talents. And when you're talking to them about what you're doing, I would very strongly say, this is what we're doing. We've chosen to hold our family and protect our children and raise them in this beautiful greenhouse where we allow in the light and the love. And I would love to invite you to help teach my child budgeting. You're so great at budgeting that I would love for you to help with this. Or, you're such a great organizer. It would be nice that whenever you came in, you would help us with our organization, or you're kind, or you're generous, or anything that you see in that person. I would invite that quality into your greenhouse. And so then the person will feel loved and accepted. And I think what happens is people are so, well, I'm not in their bubble or in their greenhouse, so what's wrong with me? And then
it makes them defensive.
What's wrong with my choices? What's wrong with me? But if you say, this is what we've chosen to do, and I'm inviting you and your beautiful qualities in, I think that people kind of calm down a little bit.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, and for sharing that with everybody that listens to us. Now we're going to transition for those of you who are part of our Patreon. If you're not, and you're listening to this, you might want to go over and grab it, because we are going to talk about juicier things, like how it's come up, and things that we wish we hadn't done. And, I love that, like what you said, that analogy of like bringing them back into the greenhouse. So next, let's talk about that. So this part is a little more relaxed. Find our Patreon at Ariel's Light. So Ariel's Light, if you haven't heard already, is the ministry that we started this year, interfaith. So we welcome people of all faiths to come and experience and converse and really get to know this conscious parenting space. I see it as a space for people that might be deeply into their religion, like being able to go deeper in what that parent-child relationship means. And then people that are just trying to figure out, like, what does this inner work journey mean to me? You're in that space, and I've been there. You're trying to figure out, well, how do I bring what's welling up inside me to my children so that they aren't lost in confusion, so that they actually have this piece of goodness and beauty that Steiner always talks about. So the ministry has roots of anthroposophy, and we will be talking about things from an anthroposophical standpoint, but also really bringing you good content that you can bring into your life